Hello, I'm Hillary Ginepra. I'm the Culinary Arts Instructor here at North Idaho College.
And I'm Jeff Jenkins, another culinary arts instructor. We have different roles. I teach more of the front of house and business side of the restaurant, where Hillary is in the back kitchen cooking the food.
Yep, doing both savory and baking and pastry. We have an amazing program here on campus where our students get real practice in front of a real audience twice a week, which I think makes our program very unique and just an amazing experience for them. It gives them the skills they need to go out and immediately put that into practice. So excellent. I also worked in a food truck over a summer. In fact, I worked in one of the food trucks in Best Avenue, mutual friend of Jeff and I made liquid nitrogen ice cream. So I worked for Street Treat, and that was a pretty interesting experience to make ice cream in a summer, or over the summer, in a tiny little hot. It was quite a challenge. I was fascinated by the challenges that I think ordinarily people don't anticipate when they enter a food truck. One of the most interesting challenges I found was potable water. And what do you do with it? And, having to keep on top of that was part of the position there on top of making ice cream. The coolest thing that I thought about the food trucks is that it really brings people out on the streets, and which I think is probably pretty good for everybody in hospitality. But just to bring people out, and people would sit at the picnic tables, and the variety of cuisines that were available there, I thought it was very cool because to me, I felt, if you were an immigrant or someone from another ethnic background, it would be a great way for you to enter into owning your own business and also to expose people to your food and your culture. And it could be endless. And people now, the biggest trend I think going on in food is the wanting of lots of different ethnic cuisines, and it's not just Mexican food. It's hyper localized, from Oaxaca or very regional cuisine. And I think the food truck scene is the best way to really kind of introduce that.
Yeah, the food trucks I think are really amazing, and all the different cultures that are brought together, and the food can just be amazing. And I think there's such a need right now for ethnic opportunities for food. Mm-hmm. And it's coming to Coeur d'Alene and Spokane area, and it's already been in big cities. You see a lot more ethnic food if you go over to Seattle or Portland, so it's really great to see that come to this area. Mm-hmm. And I take my hat off to those people in the food truck. It is from a business standpoint, it is a tough business. And you see most of the owners of those food trucks, they are there day and night, 7 days a week. Often with a food truck, you have to make your business when you have clientele or guests. And that's in the dinner hours. A lot of them have their truck set up at 2 a.m. after the bar crowds to try to capture some of that. And so it's a relentless business. Mm-hmm.
And you kind of touched on earlier just the challenges of having a food truck in the winter. We talked about the challenges in the summer, but the winter, like Street Treat, for instance, they were doing soup in the winter to try to take advantage of, that opportunity so they could stay open. I know for them also one of the biggest challenges was, yes, in the initial stage they thought, we were going to participate in all of these events all over town, Art on the Green, et cetera, but moving the food truck is not as easy as people think, that they just drive it away. So yet another challenge. But as I said earlier, I think incubating an idea in a food truck is a great way to start without the financial burden of a brick and mortar. But you still have staffing problems and, same issues.
Absolutely. And you can also kind of switch up your concept very easily. So if you find it, like Street Treats was doing all this nitrogen ice cream, but it's like, hey, this isn't working in winter, no one wants ice cream. So, they switched to doing those soups and things to try to change your image and add some things to make it work. So you have a lot more flexibility than when you spend a lot of money on a brick and mortar and advertising and marketing, and then what if it doesn't work? And then it's like, oh, hey, you're trying to reinvent yourself on a bigger scale, and it's a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm. I know that we keep talking about, just because my experience was with Street Treat, but one of the interesting things about the marketing of that was, Facebook. It had to be Facebook for the marketing so they could reach out to lots of people and let people know that they were there. And I thought that was a pretty interesting, innovative, modern way of marketing. My parents were gassed when I wanted to, as they say, throw my life away and go to culinary school. I went to college for biology and did the college thing, but I've always been really passionate about food, and I learned it from both of my grandparents. It kind of skipped a generation, but I was always really fascinated by food and watched both of my grandparents and their specific cultures. And so I moved, after college, I started working in restaurants, and that just kind of solidified my love for it. So I decided to move to New York and go to a culinary school that was nutrition and culinary together, and kind of more Eastern philosophies about food. So that's kind of where my interest still really lies, which brings in a lot of cultural diversity.
I kind of have a little bit of a similar story. I kind of got into the restaurant business basically as just a side job while I'm trying to go to school and college, and you just kind of get in the industry, and it sucks you in, but in a good way, because you just kind of fall in love with it. And when I finished college, I was going to be actually in finance and accounting, so I went to be an accountant and hated it. I mean, I missed all the personality and interaction with guests, and just kind of the passion for food as you kind of grow up through the restaurants and learning more about food.
Our industry is culturally diverse on every level. I've worked in kitchens where I'm generally the minority, actually. And I'm half Sicilian, so I love Italian food, but people ask me all the time, what is my favorite food? And I just can't ever answer that because it changes with my mood. One day I love Middle Eastern food, one day I love Persian food, one day it's Japanese. I love all of them. I love every aspect of it. I will say I had the worst pizza I've ever had in my life in Italy, in Bologna, which is like a Tuscan region. So for me, it was really interesting because outside of those regions, they don't really know how to make those things. So we as Americans kind of generalize it, and then they pick up on it. Well, American tourists like pizza, so we're going to make this pizza for them, even though it's completely out of their comfort zone. That's my love of food.
I'd say when I was young, I didn't have a lot of, Chinese food, that's gross, who wants that? Then I ended up working at a Chinese restaurant and had a real appreciation for the food that they made and what they could do with it. Even more so, working at that restaurant, it showed what the true Chinese cooks could do with food, and not necessarily what they served to the public. And because it was very different, and I said, well, why don't you put that on the menu for the public? And they go, they don't like it. And so right now, I think we're really reinventing our food culture so that people are really wanting that authentic flavors of whatever cuisine it may be. So not the Americanized Mexican food that we typically see, but they want true Mexican food from regional regions, like Chef was saying, and it's can be so wonderful. So.
And yeah, I think our industry is so dynamic. There's so much to it. I know we've both met just incredible people along the way from all over the world. Food has enabled me to travel all over the world, and that's just really exciting. And I know Jeff, he travels quite a bit too. And
yeah, that's usually when we travel through food. And we try to eat as many places as we can and try as many things that we can. Try to keep an open mind and try things that we've never tried before. It's really enriching. And it really kind of shows you the true culture as well. You know, when you go to Mexico, you see them hand making the tortillas and everything and how personal it is. And they really appreciate it when you're down there and you try their food and try the different things. And you really get to know the culture.
There's nothing that brings people together, I think, and breaks barriers down more than food. It's kind of like the universal language that everybody relates to.